Joe, a busy day. This new report out of the New York Times that we'll dig into about new subpoenas issued to a wide range of people in Donald Trump's orbit around the effort to overturn the 2020 election.
Right. At first glance, surprising, but then after you think about it, not so much. I mean, there is a reason, of course, why we have all of these investigations moving forward, and whether it's the records investigation or whether it's around January the 6th or whether it's around George, is because Donald Trump obviously broke the law time and again. And you even have the most hard-right lawyers saying what Attorney General Barr is now saying, which is, did he break the law? Yes, of course he broke the law. Are the papers his papers? No, they're not his papers. Should he be arrested? Well, that's where the debate stands. So, and yet another far right legal analyst came out and said the same thing. So again, you see the news and you sort of draw a breath, but at the same time, it's not so surprising. One person after another person after another person every day is facing justice for being part of a mob that tried to overturn a presidential election. And the person that they all credit for getting them there, the person who inspired them to do that, the person who was the head of that conspiracy to commit sedition against the United States, well, he's living in his country club in Florida. At some point, justice is served. And at some point, Americans can be assured that no man, no woman is above the law.
And of course, as you say, even William Barr, Trump's former attorney general, among those saying the Justice Department, it appears, has enough to indict. The question for him and others is, should they? So here's what we know this morning. New information about the widening criminal investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election. NBC News now has confirmed that about 40 subpoenas were issued over the past week to people associated with former President Trump. According to the New York Times, which first reported the news, former Trump advisor Dan Scavino is among those subpoenaed. His attorney has declined to comment. A lawyer to former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik confirmed to NBC News that Kerik was among those subpoenaed. Kerik reportedly was hired by Trump's legal team to investigate fraud in the 2020 election. According to his lawyer, Kerik initially had offered to grant an interview voluntarily. A source tells NBC News former Trump advisor Boris Epshteyn was one of two people to have their phones seized. Epshteyn has been tied to the scheme to replace Biden electors with fake Trump electors. Former President Trump was spotted at his golf course in Northern Virginia yesterday. Wearing that red Make America Great Again hat, Trump was seen with a group of about 8 to 12 people, including his son Eric. The former president making an unexpected arrival at Dulles Airport in Virginia on Sunday amid speculation the Justice Department could charge him with crimes. Trump posted on social media yesterday he was just working during the rare post-presidential trip to the D.C. area. Let's bring in Justice Department reporter for the New York Times, Katie Benner, and former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuade. Good morning to you both. Katie, I'll start with you and this report in the Times that you contributed to. We laid out some of the names of this wide range of about 40 people around Donald Trump who did receive subpoenas from the Justice Department. So who all are we talking about beyond some of the names we laid out, and why this rush in recent days?
So on the timing, I think that one of the reasons why the Justice Department put out this sort of blast of subpoenas, requests for information, and took a couple of phones last week is because they are bumping up against the 2 months before the election, a period where the Justice Department really does not want to do a lot of overt investigative steps. Instead, what they tend to do is they try to analyze information that they already have, or they try to subpoena companies like phone companies or tech companies for records, things that would not tip off to the public what it is they're investigating or what it is they're looking at so close to a very sensitive political cycle. And then in terms of who the Justice Department was looking at, they were really trying to get information from anybody who has acquaintance with or worked on or knows anything about a couple of the different investigative threads they're already looking at, including the plan to put forth an alternative or fake slate of electors in key swing states.
Barbara, I would take it's not great news for you whenever the Department of Justice seizes cell phones from your aides. What does that tell you about, first of all, where they're going with this investigation, and how aggressive they are, how possibly close they are to charging the president?
Yeah, Joe, you see that the circles are closing in on the highest levels of government here, close aides to the former president. And as I read these subpoenas, it seems to me that we are seeing kind of the fake electors scheme meeting the seditious conspirators scheme. And so what they're really looking for is, I think, a commonality at the top to connect these two threads together. And if you can make that connection, then you could put Donald Trump right at the center of a conspiracy. Now, you asked about seizing telephones. It says to me that they've looked at phone records that they're able to get from the phone company, but there may be encrypted phone messages that they can only get from the phones themselves. These tend to be the ones that are done in secret, the ones that might be the most sensitive. And so getting the phones, it's where we are most candid. Our text messages, our list of people that we've made phone calls to. And so those can be very useful to tying those threads together. And text messages can really be a gold mine. As we saw in the January 6th hearings, it's where people speak candidly. It's where admissions come in. And so I think that it can be a veritable gold mine.
Jonathan Lemire, you wrote the best-selling book on this attempted coup by the Trump administration, people around Donald Trump, to overturn the 2020 election. What jumped out at you about this report among the names we saw in there? I guess some of the suspects we would anticipate seeing there, but what else did you see in this new report?
Yeah, it does just go show the breadth of this probe and therefore the breadth of the conspiracy to try to overturn that election. Boris Epshteyn, has sort of basically been a legal point person for Trump informally for some time now, as he's struggled to retain significant lawyers and in his post-presidency. Bernie Kerik, of course, we know was in the room at both at the Willard Hotel, which is the command center across the street from the White House in the weeks after the 2020 election, as well as having time in the Oval Office. He was one of those who was able to kind of freely come and go and was in conversations about seizing voting machines. He was in the room when Michael Flynn suggested that the military should be put on the nation's streets because of a, quote, rigged election. That, of course, none of that true, but just goes to show here that this probe is only widening. And Katie, I wanted to get you on this. We've had a conversation a lot that every time there seems to be a new DOJ step and there seems to be more momentum, we sort of run into that theory that 60 or so days out before an election, the DOJ wouldn't do something that could be perceived as political. We know Trump's name is not on the ballot, but we also know he is the leader of the Republican Party. It'd be political. What is your sense of it, the people you talk to? And I know no decision has been made, but is that informal guideline front of mind for DOJ? Or is that something that if they feel like they need to go now, they will?
The guideline is very front of mind, particularly vis-a-vis these investigations, because they are so sensitive. I would say that last week was probably the outside of what people would consider the period before the election. But also keep in mind, I don't think that we have any indication that the Justice Department is anywhere near charging anybody close to the former president or even the former president himself with the crimes around January 6th in particular. Keep in mind, if what they did last week is if they subpoenaed information from 40 people, that's information that the department and its investigators now have to comb through, look at, read, and try to cross-examine and try to cross-reference. This is going to take a long time. So I wouldn't say that we're really close to charges. I wouldn't expect any charges before the election anyway because of this guideline. But even without an election, I would say that there's probably more than 2 months of work to do.